Here's how to make a paper cylinder. All I need is a sheet of paper. I cut this one to be a little short. You could use any sheet of paper you want. But I'm going to make a small cylinder. What I'm going to do is turn my paper the long way and use a ruler to measure a 1/2 inch. I would not do any less than 1/2 inch. Right? The inch is there. 1/2 inch is the next biggest mark. From the other side, maybe you can see between 4 and 3. Got another mark there. Then I will pick up my ruler and slide my paper down. And I'll make the same marks at the top. Line 0 up with the edge. Make a mark at 1/2 inch. And make a mark at 1/2 inch. Okay, now I'm going to connect these lines all the way across, just as if I was drawing a border on my paper. There we go. Okay. Now, I'm going to cut off a little kind of square shape out of the corner. Doesn't have to be exact, just roughly equal. You don't have to measure it. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to cut off a little square like that. Now, I'm going to do the same for this other side. You know what? I'm going to make this shorter. I'm going to have a smaller cylinder. If you want a bigger cylinder, go ahead and keep using that other side. But I'm just going to have a small one. So again, cut a little notch out of the corner. Doesn't have to be perfect because this is actually going to end up being on the inside of the cylinder. Okay, so now, all along these outside little tabs, we need to make it into like fringe. We need to do the fringe technique. But I'm stopping at that line. It's very important that you stop at the line. Don't cut over the line. You don't want these to be too big. The smaller, the better. Now, to keep this video short, I'm only going to do one side of this. I'm only going to close up one side of this cylinder. But if you want to do the full closed cylinder, you need to do this to both sides. Right, and then I would, if I want both sides closed, I need to do the same to this side. So now we close up the cylinder. What I'm going to do is, I can curve that a little bit. I'm going to put glue on the end of one of those little tabs, and I will roll the cylinder closed. Now, I want to line up the fringe. I'm looking at how the fringe lines up over there to make sure that the paper is lined up straight. And then I will pinch it and hold it closed. So now I have a roll with some fringe, kind of like that. If I was doing both sides, I would have fringe on both sides. If you change your mind, you can always still you can still cut the fringe because I can still see that little line in there. It's not too late if you miss this step. Because now that this glue is dry, I do want to wait for that glue to dry. Remember, dot, dot, not a lot. More glue means more waiting. Now I'm going to fold the fringe in. I'm folding along that line. This fringe is going to act as like having 1,000 little tabs in there to hold our paper on there. See, they all fold up nicely to be curved. They kind of overlap each other. Now, I'm going to take some extra paper. I'm going to take my glue. Let's close this up. Just dots of glue. You can kind of spread it a little bit. There we go. Now, I'm going to turn that upside down. Make sure it's roughly circular. And to make sure that there's good contact, you can see those tabs in there. I'm going to use the end of the ruler and try not to bump my iPad, but I'm just going to use the end of the ruler to very carefully just tap. I'm tapping the glue into contact with the paper. So that, there we go. So now those have good contact with the paper. I'm going to stop and let those dry. For the purpose of keeping this video short, I'm not going to let it dry for too long, but you should let it dry completely. And once that's done, I'm going to carefully snip around the edges of my circle. Oh, see, I didn't let it dry long enough. Wet paper is hard to cut, so you should let your glue dry before you start to cut it. There you go. I have a strong, pretty nicely, not perfect, but pretty nicely closed up can of paper. And if I wanted to do a longer video, I would do the other side. But both sides work exactly the same.